Okay, well, welcome everyone to the series of global free webinars that are hosted by Pluribus. My name is Isabelle Pujol. I am joining you from Brussels. I am the director, the founder of Pluribus. Pluribus is a global diversity and inclusion consultancy. We have been working for the last 10 years with high-performing organizations to help them succeed through diversity and inclusion. So we are passionate about the topic. And we have celebrated a few months ago our 10th anniversary. And the reason why we wanted to host this series of webinars because we collectively wrote a book, Inclusion Around the Clock. And this book was a way of celebrating and marking these key milestones. So what we do now is once a month, we have the pleasure of hosting a webinar with one of the authors of the chapters of that book. I think today is the 9th one. So we started in December, and every month we had really the delight to have this very inspiring and powerful conversations. It's very informal. Each time the idea is to have the conversation around all the various dimensions of diversity and inclusion. So today I'm very, very happy because we have a special guest in Turkey. So merhaba to everyone. I know we have participants definitely from Turkey, but also from the US, from Europe, from the Middle East. It's a truly global webinar. And the beauty is that this webinar is recorded. So it means that it will be possible for people who could not make it to actually watch the webinar. So it will be posted on our Pluribus News Facebook and YouTube page. So, you know, very, very nice to be able to watch these webinars at a later stage. What I'd like to say, first of all, is to really give my deep gratitude to our guest speakers. So we have two guest speakers that are currently here, and we're just waiting for Burcu Yalman, who is the writer of the chapter on gender balance. And Burcu is just on her way. She had some technical, we had some technical issues, and she will be joining us in a minute together with Mehmet, that is currently here. So I know Burcu for many years. Burcu has been a very inspiring friend and colleague. I would definitely say it again when she would be here. Burcu is working for many organizations in India, and I'm sure she's arriving in a few minutes. And we have two special guests. We have Burcu Chentekimler. Burcu, so another Burcu. We are very fortunate. Burcu Chentekimler, sorry for the pronunciation, is the global...
No, that's totally fine.
Okay. You are, Burcu, the global D&I manager for Unilever, and we'll be very interested and curious to hear about your personal experience with dealing with gender in your organization, but also at a personal level. And then we also are very happy to have as a special guest, Mehmet Alçoklas, who is a transformation coach, leadership coach, and also an ex-film producer. So we'll be very keen to hear also some of the experiences from Mehmet. So both of you, very grateful for your presence, your attendance. Thank you so much. So
thank you.
While we're waiting for Burcu, I'd like to share a little bit about my personal understanding of gender balance. Many times when we are meeting with clients, or I would say partners, different partners, different organizations, the first assumption is when we talk about gender, we talk about women. And I think it's very important to understand that when we talk about gender, especially about gender balance, we talk about men and women working together, having effective communication together, learning from each other. So I think it's important again and again to make sure that when we are working with organizations and when organizations are willing to work on the topic, to ensure that hand with hands, men and women are working together on that topic. So I think it's important, and that's why it was important for us, especially for that webinar, to also have men and women, to be able to be part of this webinar. So one thing that I'm sharing with Burcu Yalman, who will be joining us very soon, is, and in fact it's the way that we met the first time, is our passion for leadership programs. And what I'm saying that when we talk about gender, we need to have both men and women working together, it doesn't say that in some instance, you also need to have some specific conversations within women and also within men. And together with Burcu, we were able to work on a program called Coming Into Your Own. And I'm sure at some stage Burcu Yalman will be able to share something about that. So Burcu Yalman, welcome. Thank you so much for being able to compete with the technology and being able to drive and be able to be with us just now. So I was
compete with Istanbul traffic, but I was happy that you had at least another Burcu on the line.
Yes. No, I'm so sorry. Welcome, Burcu. I was just saying that you were writing the chapter Gender Balance, Start from Within, and we are very curious to understand why you selected that topic, why it's important for you. I must say that when I read your chapter myself, I was very moved, very touched by your story. I think you were able to share some very personal and deep anecdotes. So thank you for that, because it made the whole topic very real, very tangible, very genuine. So thank you for that. So as I said, the webinar is recorded. There is a possibility to ask some questions. You have on the bottom of the screen a Q&A click button. So if you have any questions, we will, and I will definitely look at it and see whether we are, waiting for the end of the conversations or towards the end of the webinar. We are totally flexible. So welcome, Burcu, and I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you. Why did I choose this topic? I believe the topic chose me years ago, but the wake-up the alarm came again years ago from my ex-husband when he said, we don't need two fathers in this house. We need a mother and a father. That was harsh for me, very heavy feedback, but it really reflected the truth at that time. I was a tomboy when I was a kid, raised in a family, and I had a brother, but I always heard from my mother and my teachers, you should have been a boy. You are too assertive, too warrior, too self-confident, too, sometimes aggressive for a girl. So I think both the nature and the nurture really contributed on my developing of more masculine traits in me than feminine. maybe leaving home very early and at age 11 to study in a different city, and to I had to be on my feet, strong, solve all my problems. So it really developed my capability to live on my own, to fight for it, to solve problems, to tackle situations, which I'm happy for. But what happened years after, which also continued during my finance years, corporate finance, I was always the only woman in the team, and at those times I was called Osman rather than Burcu, and Osman is a very typical Turkish boy name by my colleagues. And very, I should say, unfortunately, I carried that name proudly. But then with my kids born, I started discovering some other traits in myself that were dying to come out. And that was a very deep awareness to realize that those parts were not my weak parts. They were as strong as my other masculine traits, as long as I knew how to use them as a strength. So the work first started within me to accept my feminine side and to find my gender balance within me. Yes, I could do whatever a man can, and all women can do whatever a man can, and men can do whatever a woman can, but in their own way. They should do them in their own way because we are different in nature. It's not what we do, it's how we do it could be different because we all bring our own uniqueness and authentic selves, some coming from our gender culture, some coming from our other culture and the way how we are raised. So when I realized that I was only living on my masculine side, which is almost like 50% of what I have, so I started trying to build on and developing those strengths, which really also helped my children at home. And then I realized that the companies, corporations are trying to do the same under the name of first gender equality. When it was very automatic focus for me to divert my leadership, trainings or coaching services towards women empowerment and gender. And thanks to Pluribus, of course, I really realized that I developed myself, my formation, my knowledge on this topic very firmly, and with your help also. But what I have realized there too, what us individually we are doing, corporations are doing the same thing first. They start by denying it. I used to say, I'm woman. No, I'm first a human. I'm a human being, not a woman. No, women, men, we're all human. We're all the same. So companies do the same. We don't have a gender issue. We're all the same. We treat everyone equally. Okay, justice, treating everyone equally is a good thing, but what if those people do not share the same conditions? They have different needs, they have different styles, they have different nature, and you treat everybody the same as if they are the same. So this shows what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. And it's the same thing with the companies. So when companies go from this stage, we don't know what we don't know, when they start realizing that this is an important topic, women and men are different, and the beauty comes from this difference, how we can really capitalize on this difference and make the total even a bigger one. So in that awareness, I realized that the companies, they start working on this, but focusing on women rather than gender. But it's a system issue, and you cannot really develop the system, improve the system, focusing only one part of it. So when corporations start focusing only on one part, the impact becomes more questionable. Why women? Why specific leadership for women? Are women in need of being trained as leaders? We're not good enough? Or sometimes the focus starts with the easiest thing, with the numbers, when to balance the numbers. So what shall we do? Let's start with the easiest one. In recruiting talent, let's keep the ratio to the advantage of the women so that the number of employees become more balanced. So this is what we call positive discrimination. And although the intention is positive, it is discrimination. And if you don't explain the intention good enough, it confuses people. Why? Why am I promoted? Is it because I'm a woman, or why amn't I promoted? Because I'm a man. So, and then the companies saw that even though they balance the recruitment ratio, still the existing women-man ratio doesn't change, or at the top level doesn't move much. Because while there's an influx, there's also an outflow. It's like a swimming pool problems that we used to solve in, high school. So then the diversity and gender equality, gender balance in ratio is not sufficient to bring that balance. So what is needed to maintain that talent and to really get rid of the outflow is the gender intelligence. Gender intelligent management, gender intelligent work environment, which means, both genders, they are valuable as they are. They bring some qualities from birth. It's natural, it's biological. Some from nurture, from sociological aspects, the way how they are raised. And the best is to be able to integrate them and have them work together. And we can do that only by training us in terms of what gender culture is, what a women culture is, or the man culture is, or better to say masculine and feminine, because we all have them. Men have masculine traits, feminine traits, and women have masculine traits, feminine traits. And what the system needs is more than an equal number of men and women. It's more masculine and feminine leadership traits together, the balance. So that stage is internalization. It's the same for individuals and it's the same for corporations. When we really absorb that and really give the space for all traits to blossom, then it becomes really gender intelligent and gender balanced environment. So I'm very happy that we now have two wonderful guests with, very unique experiences in their personal lives, but also in their corporate environments that they have also witnessed, and they will, I'm sure, share their stories where we will also hear from those stages and how they were able to tackle the situations that they confront. So to me, this is still a very fascinating topic individually, because I'm still catching myself sometimes with some prejudices about myself and also gender, but now it has become easier to catch it and then to heal it, I would say. And I'm lucky that working on this topic, starting from inward, helped me to learn by experience, not only by reading. So I think I should stop now and leave this space to Burcu and Mehmet to share their very interesting stories as well. So shall we have Mehmet in between two Burcu's? Burcu, what do you think as a change?
Yeah, I think Mehmet should go ahead. I'm sure also he has a very interesting story that I'm also very keen to hear. So let's go with him first.
Yes.
Finish with me. Yeah.
Minority here, so.
You know, in Turkey, we believe that if you are in between two people having the same name, like Burcu and Burcu, that means that you are very lucky. I'm extremely lucky to be here today. And first of all, I would like to say why I'm interested and involved in this gender balance and diversity and inclusion, because I believe that this is the only way for a better world. The only way of peace in the world is balance inside and among people. And balance doesn't mean that there will be conflict. Conflict is very good. The question is how you manage the conflict, by exercising power or by trying to dominate others, or giving equal opportunities to people to express their authentic selves. In this country, unfortunately, the women are beaten, violated, not given the same equal opportunity. And it's said that there is a woman problem in Turkey. I believe that there's a man problem in Turkey, or maybe we can say that there's a system problem in Turkey, all kinds of systems like school, education, government, religion, all kinds of system. We have problems, and this is not a destiny. We can change it. So this is my mission to contribute to this change. And for me, it is not only a gender balance, it is the balance of feminine and masculine aspects inside us. My personal experience is before making productions for cinema and television, I used to manage a cinema chain called AFM Cinemas in Turkey. It was the largest cinema chain, and I was offered the position of CEO, and I accepted. When I started to work in this company, I just noticed that there is only around 5% of women in the company. The women who are working in the company were just clerks in the headquarters, but almost any woman in the field, in movie theaters. I just started to convince the board of the directors to have much more women, and I put a policy of equal numbers of men and women we need to hire. It was a positive discrimination. We started to hire more and more women, young people, and then the company started to change dramatically. When we hired women, we faced a problem that we didn't see before. It was, cinemas are working for late hours, and after midnight, we close the cinemas, and women cannot easily go home in a city like Istanbul. So we put a mid-shift, which started 1 o'clock and finishes at around 8 o'clock, so that women can easily go to home. It was also a positive action, not a discrimination, but a positive action. But that was not enough. Afterwards, we realized that that was not enough, because in order to be a manager, you need to work until the cinemas is closed, because all the closing reports is done after when we close the cinemas. therefore, we needed another action to have more women in the management position of the cinemas, of the movie theaters. So that it was very, very hard, I'm saying you, to convince board of the directors to put a shuttle service to home in order to do not let women after 12 o'clock. So that I convinced board of the directors, and we had many women in management position of the cinemas. It's not in the level of the movie theaters, but also in the headquarters. Finally, we had 3 women directors out of 5 reporting directly to me, and including me, we had a 50% balance of men and women. And it was not only numbers, we were taking the decisions together, and when we were as men, we were willing to run and just hit something. Women's approach were different, and they were showing us some details that we used to disregard. And then it was a really not only balanced, but also kind of, I can say, gender intelligent company we were achieving. And we removed some glass ceilings, first in the movie theaters, putting some, shuttle service and so, and opening the opportunity to women to be managers. And I just now realized that we also removed another ceiling in the top management as well. When I quit the company, the chief operating officer became the CEO. He was a man. And then after 2 years, he moved to Canada. And a woman became the CEO of a company. It was much larger than the time when I started to run the company. So she had much more difficult job than myself, but she managed very well. In the meantime, she got married and had a baby. And after all, when I think, I am very proud, and I can say that it was not only change in one company called AFM Cinemas that I managed. It was the complete transformation of the industry in Turkey, because when we started to hire women, other cinema chains or individual cinemas realized that, wow, this is a complete different operation, and they are very successful, not only the face, but in operations as well. So everybody started to hire women. And now when I go to cinema just as a customer, I see more women working than men, not only in movie theaters, in the floor, but also in headquarters. So it was a complete transformation, I can say. That's my story in cinema business, movie theaters business, I can say. But I will now let Burcu to speak about her own experience. And if we have some little time, still I can also tell you about my experience on production side. Is that okay for everybody?
Yes, please go ahead, Mehmet. Well, thank you for that first part already. Very inspiring. And the word that comes to my mind by hearing your story is really change agent. You were really
Thank you.
a very strong change agent. There was one question which was posted, which is, how did you deal with potentially the resistance of the men in your organization in the film industry? How did you deal with the resistance?
Actually, the resistance the biggest resistance came from the local partners of the company. It was much more difficult than the resistance of the men on the floor to deal with. However, I had the other part of the company, the other partners was a private equity, and I just went to them first, convinced them, and they convinced the local partners in the board of the directors level. In the floor level, I had men, well, similar understanding like me in the headquarters. Then we had very determinist, very much strict on the matter. So I think that the top management, if there is a determination, it works. Is it the answer satisfactory for the question?
Yes. Yes, thank you. And there was just to build in on the answer, there was another question very briefly. The question was, were there any difference in salaries between the men and the women during the same job?
Any kind of, any difference in salaries, in bonuses, any difference?
No difference.
No difference, I mean. There was no difference, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mehmet.
The salary and the bonuses were not, according to gender or age or anything, just the position itself. Performance and position, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Shall I start then? Thank you, Mehmet, by the way, for giving the floor. Isabel, I want to start congratulating you for your 10 years and also publishing a great book, which I just started to read. Apologies, I couldn't finish it yet. I'm progressing slowly. And also would like to thank Burcu because, she invited me to this very lovely call. I can't agree more with what Burcu has said. All the messages totally aligned. And also, it was very inspiring to hear a male leader talking about, how he created this balanced, let's say, environment. So lucky to be a part of this conversation. And hi, everyone who are listening from different parts of the world. My story might be a little bit boring when compared to the first ones, because I think I will look from a corporate perspective, let's say. But before doing that, we'll try to quickly introduce myself and tell about my personal story. I think Burcu and Mehmet mentioned that, we're coming from a developing country, Turkey. The representation of women in workforce is only 30%, which was even higher when the Turkish Republic was built, but now dropping dramatically, which is not a good sign because, we should expect this to increase every year. Unfortunately, it's around 30, 33 nowadays. And we always had like maybe one, maximum two representation in the cabinet of ministers. So when you look at politics, when you look at education, when you look at all the other, let's say, different parts like health of the society, Turkey, we have been ranked as one of the least, let's say, countries. We are one of the bottom countries. We are maybe just up from sub-Saharan countries and Middle East countries, which are known to be a bit behind in this agenda of gender, let's say, equality. So, just to give you the background, we are coming from that kind of, let's say, a culture. So my upbringing, I think, definitely all of us, we are raised in different cultures and families, and it really impacts our personality and what we want to do in the future, what we want to do with our lives. So, but we realize it later on in the life, when we grown up, when we build families, when we have kids. When I look back, my story is more around inclusion, of course, diversity and inclusion, but it's more I'm coming from a family, both mother and father are the first, let's say, to be graduated from university. Before that, you know, my grandfathers, they were farmers, or, you know, they were just, let's say, common people who were trying to battle with the realities of life, let's say. Coming from that family, from my father's first marriage, I have 5 sisters. So you're familiar to this. So in Turkish culture, they really want to have a son. So in his second marriage, which is my mom, there is this son, and I'm the second child of the second marriage. So it's a very big family. So it's where the diversity comes, actually. All different thoughts and ideas, clashes and conflicts, as you can imagine. And then I became like a middleman, which I realized later on when I decided to choose psychology as my major, because I realized I always listen and try to find the common ground for people. It's really helped a lot for me to grow up quickly. The other thing is that, you know, I always went to public school. In our school, I remember in primary school, one year we were 80 students in one class. So can you imagine, like, one teacher dealing with 80 students in a public school, all coming from different social backgrounds, different, let's say, educational backgrounds and families. So this kind of a background I had, which I'm really proud right now, because it helps me a lot, you know, to connect with different type of people. And then, of course, you know, I graduated from college. I was very ambitious, as most of you. And then I started working in different companies, ended up in Unilever. And I will come to the point when I actually met and connect with Pluribus. So I was working in Singapore. Back then, you know, I was in HR, more like a HR business partnering kind of role. And we were I was looking after supply chain. As you know, supply chain is always known to be very male-dominated kind of department. So we were, in 2012, we were trying to just establish a program for diversity and inclusion. And then, you know, our company used to work with Pluribus. I think they did a great survey, created insights, find out insights from women. And then, you know, because of the good results of that, we said that let's do something else for supply chain, and let's launch a female program, which is coming into your own, actually. And we invited, you know, ladies across the world to Singapore, and we spent amazing 3 days together. So my journey of, you know, let's say, understanding and getting interested in the diversity and inclusion agenda starts with Pluribus. So that's why it's very unique to me. Both Isabel and Dorian were there. And then I realized, you know, it is something really important for me as a person and as a, let's say, professional. When I come back to Turkey, I ask, you know, for this responsibility of my region, not just Turkey, but Middle East, Russia, kind of, you know, big geography. And I was given the diversity and inclusion, let's say, responsibility. As you can imagine, in these geographies, 33 countries, all different from each other, different priorities, different backgrounds, challenges, and everything. But it was really fun. And then in that work, I actually met Burcu. So we said that, you know, we created a program, and one of the pillars of the program is to educate people about their unconscious biases. So we said that we need to start with the leaders, and then we designed a workshop together with Burcu and Ipek. And it went very well, actually, because we got super reflections from that, and it was a good starting point. So just tying up to my current role, I'm looking after the global diversity and inclusion agenda currently, working with great leaders, as you can imagine, in the corporate center of Unilever headquarters, which is based in London. And I have seen how this agenda has evolved, actually. So just to give you like a quick understanding and a couple of tips that, you know, it's not rocket science, what Burcu has been mentioning. So how can we change this game? Because if we continue acting the same or doing the same things, gender equality will come only in 170 years. So it will be too late. that's why we need to do something different. And most of the corporations like Unilever, we started genuinely working on this agenda. I have great colleagues, I know great people from other companies as well doing great stuff. It all starts with leadership engagement, for sure. That's why what Mehmet did is a great example. So it should start from top. Our CEO, Paul Pullman, is very dedicated. He works very closely with United Nations, not just for women empowerment, but also for, environment, health, education, all the United Nations, global goals. And then we created a global diversity board, which actually identifies the strategy of this agenda. I'm looking at my notes. The second thing is Burcu has mentioned, attracting women. And sometimes even putting quotas, if necessary, especially for the departments like sales, supply chain, where, it's fully female, male-dominated, even below 30% representation. It should be minimum, by the way, in any department. So attracting women, but that's not enough. Because, if you attract women, you will have a great inflow, but then you will lose women if you don't create the right environment for women to live in, right? So retaining women is the second thing, and it's linked to many things. Developing people, investing on the, careers of people, mentoring, coaching, these are great tools. And then the other one is the policies. So we are not just, professionals. We also have some personal responsibilities in life. So making sure that we have flexible policies, making sure that we have parental policies that support these people to balance their, let's say, priorities in life. And what we did on that, we have a great agile policy, but we also created an online platform which guides expecting parents on what to expect, basically, on this journey. And also their line managers, educating line managers, how they should react when an employee comes and says, she's pregnant. And they don't even know what to say. With all good intentions, we don't know these things, and it doesn't come naturally if you're not an expert. So that's why educating people, creating awareness, relentlessly creating awareness about these topics. And then last but not least, which I think is the most important thing, creating this inclusive culture. Because what we say is diversity is being invited to a party, and inclusion is being invited to dance. So even if you have all the different aspects of diversity in your organization, and let's start from gender balance, because today's topic is gender balance. Even if we have, a great balance in terms of age, ethnicity, in terms of sexual preferences, in terms of all the other aspects, disabilities and everything, if you don't create an environment where people listen to each other or care or value about each other, that doesn't really work. So what we have been working on under a new campaign on stereotype, and which has like two pillars, let's say. One, changing, women's, let's say, positioning in advertisement sector, which we are leading that in a sense with my boss, Aline Santos. And now we're moving it to the workplace, where we're really trying to create people who listen to each other, who understand, who give floor to each other, respect values, different, opinions and everything. So it's a full, deep topic, but I just scratched the surface of it for this conversation. I'll be happy to answer any questions related to that and share further, but I will stop here and I can give the floor to Burcu back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Burcu. I mean, these stories are very interesting, with powerful learning for other companies and managers. Thank you for sharing. Do we have time for question and answers, Isabel?
Yes, absolutely. Well,
do we have any more questions?
Yes, thank you, Burcu, for sharing your personal journey as a woman, but also as a global D&I manager at Unilever. And for me, what resonates is the part around the notion of inclusion. Obviously, you could have all the diversity in place. I mean, you could recruit, attract, if you don't have an inclusive culture, if you are not displaying an inclusive behavior, if you don't have inclusive process, then it's not going to sustain. And the diversity will unfortunately, vanish. So it's very important to focus on inclusion. So the question maybe for you, Burcu, is you've been through the journey. Where do you think you are on the journey? I know that Unilever started many years ago on that journey. Would you be able to assess on whether you have already some strong signal in the organization where you could see some
Yes.
radical shift?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I didn't want to, bore people with numbers, but I think sometimes it is really significant to be able to show some progress. So when we started the journey, especially on gender balance, at management, we have 38% female representation, which was in 2010. So where we are right now is we are 46%, and which is super close to 50, which is our ambition by 2020, because we want a really gender balanced organization and we wanted to start with management. So that's one of the signals that we are moving to the right direction. However, in terms of inclusion, I think we have done many great practices, let's say, but there is still much more to do. Changing the mindsets, creating that awareness, creating role models who listen to their teams, creating that democratic environment, willing to create. When we ask our employees, the results are positive. But, whenever you hear sometimes some, let's say, different feedback and insights, you then start thinking, okay, until reaching out every single employee in the organization, you are not done. So that's why I think that's an ongoing journey, I can say.
Thank you, Burcu. Another question is, how do you measure inclusion?
It's a very challenging thing, isn't it? So that's why across the, also we have great networks with the diversity and inclusion, let's say, practitioners. And that's always the question that comes up. So thanks for the question. There are different ways of doing it, but it is, psychologists will know better. It's really difficult to measure these kind of, let's say, soft topics. So we have, like any other organization, we have a global people survey that we conduct every year or every 2 years. And there is an inclusion question there. That's only one of them. The other assessment is a crowdsourcing that we just started. It's a new technology where we actually reach randomly, let's say, around 5,000 employees, but not just receive their questions like yes, no, I agree. Also getting their feedback and other employees ranking those feedbacks, seeing all the insights, open-ended insights, and ranking it. We received a very good, let's say, positive reaction from there as well. So these are just two, but we are also working on it. We are planning to make another baseline survey this year to make sure that, we actually touch all the different aspects of inclusion, which is a very broad topic.
Thank you, Burcu. And indeed, that's always the key question. How do we measure inclusion?
Yeah, so
sometimes, as you said at the very beginning, it's not necessarily rocket science. And inclusion could be very simple things at a very daily environment.
Conversation,
how we talk to each other, how we listen to each other, how we create the space for everyone to be who they are, without having to put a mask or and that's why I really like the topic of today's webinar, which is gender balance begins also within ourselves, because we tend to forget that we also, as unique person, we are having this kind of balance between our feminine and our masculine qualities. And so it's very very inspiring. Thank you. So we still have 10 minutes. I don't know if Burcu Yalman would like to add any questions, any insights, or whether Mehmet would like to share another experience. We still have another 5-10 minutes.
I just want to share the results of a survey, research made in the US, which was very interesting for me. They looked at the top performers teams at corporations. The top performer teams are those teams where the diversity is the highest. And the same research also indicated that the lowest performing teams are those teams where the diversity is the highest. So having diversity is not enough to really reach the top performing teams. What makes the difference is the inclusive leadership. So in a different way, it says, if you are not going to secure inclusion, like inclusive work environment, inclusive leadership, then don't even try to be as, diverse, because it's going to take you to even lower performance results. So what Burcu was mentioning reminded me of that research. And I also remember what Mehmet said about his experience with the movies, the TV series that they produced. It's one woman, one man, right? The title. If we have some time, maybe we can also hear from Mehmet about that experience.
Yes, please go ahead, Mehmet.
Okay, thank you. Well, one of the series, actually, it's the best one that I prefer myself among my all children of productions. It was an adaptation of a Canadian show called Engar Une Fille, which is One Woman, One Man. And when I had a business partner, it was a woman. We both together start to the pre-production. Actually, the artists and actresses are one man and one woman, definitely. And in script writing level, we hired one man who was an experienced scriptwriter, and I insisted a lot to have one woman scriptwriter. We found one, and then it was a debate among my business partner that the experienced guy should be the lead scriptwriter. I said, no, this is a one man, one woman, and the nature is just equality. And no one was the leading producer, leading writer, leading anything. All the decisions we took, even I remember that we discussed among just one sentence or one word, couple of days, couple of hours to reach an agreement. And no one, even myself, said, no, this is it. This is the decision. It's done. It was a really big education for us as well to reach an agreement together. The result was fantastic. The TV series is broadcasted for 7 years. It was one of the most successful shows in TV history in Turkey, and it is broadcasted around 1,000 episodes. And well, beside all those numbers and everything, I remember one email that we received from our audience. It was saying that our relationship is changed. It is healed, because when we see the couple on TV, we realized that how stupid we were. While leading something, you don't realize that how, let's say, stupid or how wrong you are. When you see it in other people, you realize that it should be changed. So the success for me behind this show is gender intelligence in all levels, in the level of producers and partners in the level of script writers, and of course in the level of the talent who played on the stage, not on the in front of the camera.
Well, thank you, Mehmet. Well, I'm really amazed by hearing the three of you, your stories, and for me, it really shows how important it is to be congruent, so coherent with your mission and your vision and your passion, and to be having the courage. I think in all the three stories that I've heard today, the common factors is having the courage, being a change agent to create inclusion and to promote gender balance requires a lot of courage. So well done for the three of you, and thank you so much. I'm just now looking at my watch, and it's nearly the end. We have another 3 minutes. I don't know, maybe if we hear the three of you, maybe one last sentence from the three of you, just one key sentence, something you want to leave the people who are joining the webinar, a thought, the last thought.
Ooh, challenging. I think what I can say is that I really wish to live in a world where all companies and countries feel this urge to really give importance to this different aspects of diversity, starting from gender, because we really have a big issue there, especially in developing countries and specific regions of the world. Hope it will be an important priority, and we will see in our lives, in this life, see this changing. So everyone will have equal opportunities. So that's what I want to say. Hope it's not just wishful thinking, and we will see further improvement there.
Thank you.
Well, I just thinking about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's saying, who said, peace in the country, peace in the world. I just add something, inner peace and peace worldwide. So inner peace comes from balance of feminine and masculine aspects among inside us. That's it, I think. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as a coach, I like to ask questions. Maybe this time I can leave a question for our participants. As the title of my chapter, I said gender balance, and it starts from within. So I would like to leave this inquiry to our participants. Are there any parts of you that you don't include? You don't treat them inclusively, gender related or any other diversity aspects related? So I would like to leave this question. Thank you, Isabel, for this wonderful opportunity to.
Thank you. I feel really grateful for deep conversation, real conversation. It was not just on the surface. I really heard powerful, inspiring stories. I mean, it's real. So thank you for that. I'm just going to advertise, of course, the next webinar, which will take place on the 26th of October. It will happen at 2:30 Brussels time. It will be hosted by Kingsley Weber. And the title of his chapter is Curiosity, Culture, and Inclusion. So you will receive, of course, all of you, the information about the webinar. I'm going to close the webinar just now. Really deep thank you to the three of you and to all the participants who join this webinar, but also the people who would watch the webinar at the later stage. So all the best, and maybe peace within ourselves and peace in the world. That's always relevant. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
From Istanbul.